All right, let's dive into something pretty wild today.
Wild, good or wild?
I think wild, interesting. We're talking about the Genius Wave.
Okay, yeah, I've seen this around.
It's this digital audio product. Claims to make you, well, kind of like a genius. Uses brainwave entrainment or something. 7-minute audio track, and boom, you're smarter.
Sounds a little too good to be true, right? Like, can it really unlock some hidden genius in all of us?
Exactly. That's what we're going to unpack today. So, where do we even begin with something like this?
Well, I think what grabbed my attention with the Genius Wave was its focus on theta brainwaves.
Theta brainwaves. Okay, back up for a sec. What are those exactly? And what's the connection to, like, genius level thinking?
So, theta waves, they're a type of brainwave. They're most active when we're super relaxed, like in that sweet spot between awake and asleep, or when we're totally absorbed in something like reading a great book or hyper-focused on a task.
So like those flow state moments
Yeah.
where you just lose track of time and everything clicks.
Exactly. And research is starting to show that theta waves are super important for tapping into that deeper creativity and intuition. Some studies even connect them to better problem-solving skills.
Ah, okay. So that's where the genius wave comes in. It's trying to get your brain into that theta wave state to boost your brain power.
That's the idea. It uses something called brainwave entrainment.
And how did that work?
Well, basically, it uses specific sounds like binaural beats or isochronic tones. They sort of gently guide the brain into a different frequency range, like giving your brain a little nudge in the right direction.
So you're using sound to tune the brain almost.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And the Genius Wave uses this to stimulate theta wave activity, specifically in the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex.
Okay, now we're getting into brain anatomy. Remind me, what do those parts of the brain do again?
No worries. The hippocampus is all about memory and learning. And the prefrontal cortex, that's our executive function center, handles things like decision-making, focus, planning.
Ah, got it. So if this thing actually works, it could have some serious implications.
Absolutely. Think about it. Boosting the areas responsible for memory, creativity, problem solving,
Yeah.
that's a game changer.
I'm getting kind of curious now. So we've got this link between theta waves and like enhanced brain function, and we've got the genius wave saying it can stimulate those waves. But what about the results? Do people actually notice a difference?
Yeah, that's the big question, right?
Do we have any evidence for that? Or is it all just hype?
Well, it's still early days for cognitive enhancement research. There's a lot we don't know yet. But there are some really interesting anecdotal reports from people using the Genius Wave.
Oh yeah. Like what?
Some folks say they feel more focused and alert after just a few days. Talk about better productivity, clearer thinking, even feeling more creative. Others say it's more subtle, like a gradual increase in calmness and mental clarity.
So a mix of experiences, but better focus seems to be a common theme.
Yeah, I think so. And the creators of the Genius Wave actually cite a bunch of research studies on their website, linking theta waves to those cognitive benefits. They've definitely done their homework.
Okay, so at least there's some scientific backing to the claims, but, I still got to approach this with a healthy dose of skepticism. Although it's hard not to get a little excited about the possibilities, right?
Totally. The potential here is pretty amazing. It's really cool to see how this whole field of brainwave entrainment is developing.
So we've got the basics, theta waves, brainwave entrainment, potential benefits people are talking about. But what about the flip side? Are there downsides? Risks? And, is this thing even affordable? Who can actually try it out?
Those are all great questions, and they're exactly what we'll be diving into next. We'll tackle the risks and benefits, the costs, maybe even look at some alternatives to the Genius Wave, see what else is out there.
Perfect. Can't wait to dig deeper into all of that. But for now, let's leave our listeners with something to think about.
Okay, hit us with it.
What if, just what if, we could really tap into those moments of flow, those flashes of insight where our brains just seem to be firing on all cylinders? Is the Genius Wave the key to unlocking that? We'll keep exploring that question and more in the next part of our deep dive.
All right, picking up where we left off, before we get to downsides and costs and all that, I think it's worth pointing out how the Genius Wave is kind of different.
Oh, you mean how it zones in on those theta brain waves in specific parts of the brain? I was curious about that too. Why not just try to amp up brain activity overall?
Well, think of it like this. By zeroing in on theta waves in those key areas, the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex, you're basically setting up the perfect brain environment for creativity, insights, problem solving. It's like you're priming your brain for those aha moments.
I see. Instead of just blasting the whole brain with stimulation, it's more about fine-tuning for a specific outcome. So Is there research to back up this targeted approach? Does it actually work better?
There's definitely a growing body of research looking at different brainwave frequencies and what they do. Some studies suggest inducing theta waves, like through brainwave entrainment, can lead to improvements in creativity, relaxation, even sleep. And we know things like meditation and mindfulness boost theta waves, and those have tons of benefits for cognitive function and mental well-being.
Okay, so the idea of targeting theta waves makes sense based on what we know so far.
Exactly. It lines up with how we understand different brainwave states and how they're linked to different mental processes.
This is all super interesting, but I'm sure some people listening are wondering about the practical stuff. Like, what about downsides? Any risks with this brainwave entrainment thing? Is it safe for everyone?
Right, super important question. For most people, brainwave entrainment is considered pretty safe, but there are a few things to be aware of. Anyone with epilepsy or a history of seizures, they should absolutely talk to their doctor before trying this. It could potentially trigger something.
Good to know. Anything else to watch out for? Any other?
Some people might get mild side effects when they first start. Things like headaches, dizziness, maybe a little nausea, but those usually go away pretty quickly as you keep using it.
So like starting a new workout routine. Might be sore at first, but your body adjusts.
Perfect analogy. Always a good idea to start slow and see how you feel. Listen to your body, listen to your mind.
All right, risks covered. Seems pretty minimal for most folks. But let's talk money. Is the Genius Wave actually affordable? Can the average person try it out?
The cost is definitely a factor. It's not like super cheap, but it's also not crazy expensive compared to other personal development stuff or brain training apps. You got to remember, you're paying for something that's been carefully designed, backed by research, using pretty cutting edge technology.
Right, it's not just some random audio file. There's a method to the madness.
Exactly. And honestly, if you compare the cost to, say, a weekend workshop or hiring a coach, it's actually pretty reasonable. Plus, they offer a money back guarantee. So if you're not feeling it, you can get your money back.
That takes some of the risk out of trying it. Sounds like they believe in their product.
They definitely seem to. And look, when you think about the potential benefits, better focus, more creativity, stronger problem-solving skills, it could be a worthwhile investment for a lot of people.
Okay, so we've covered downsides, cost, potential benefits. But what about alternatives? Anything out there for people who maybe are on a tighter budget?
Oh, yeah, for sure. You can find tons of free binaural beat tracks online. There are apps that have brainwave entrainment programs. But, do your research. The quality can be all over the place with the free stuff. You might not get that same level of design or targeted approach that you'd find in something like the Genius Wave.
It's kind of like you get what you pay for, save money, but maybe sacrifice some quality or that specific focus.
Yeah, exactly. It's a trade-off. Ultimately, the decision to try the Genius Wave or not is up to each person.
Totally. We've laid it all out. Now it's up to the listeners to decide what works for them. Who knows, maybe just learning about brainwave entrainment is enough to spark something. Get those creative juices flowing.
I love that. The main takeaway here is to stay curious, explore new things, see how you can enhance your mental abilities. That's what matters.
Awesome. We've covered a lot of ground here, but I feel like we're just scratching the surface of this whole topic.
For real, brainwave entrainment is a whole world of possibilities, and it's constantly evolving.
All right. So as we wrap up this part, let's leave our listeners with a thought. Just imagine, what if you could boost your focus, tap into even more creativity, sharpen your mental game? What doors would that open in your life? We'll explore those possibilities and wrap up our look at the Genius Wave in the final part of our deep dive. Okay, we're back, ready to wrap up our Genius Wave deep dive. We've talked about the science behind it, the potential benefits, the practical stuff. But before we finish up, I want to zoom out a bit. Big picture stuff.
Yeah, I get what you mean. This whole conversation, it's really got me thinking, what could brainwave entrainment do for society? Imagine if everyone had access to tools that could help them unlock their full potential. That'd be something.
Exactly. We've been focusing on the individual, but what about the collective? What if the Genius Wave or something like it went mainstream? Could it change education, boost scientific discovery, maybe even lead to a more creative, innovative world?
The possibilities are pretty mind-blowing, right? Easier access to those theta brainwave states. Who knows what we could achieve? It's like we're on the verge of a whole new era for humanity.
Exciting and maybe a little scary at the same time. Thinking about the global impact, that brings up a whole bunch of new questions.
For sure. And it just shows how important it is to approach these technologies thoughtfully, ethically. Like any powerful tool, we got to make sure it's used for good.
Couldn't agree more. We can't just jump headfirst into new tech without thinking about the consequences. But hey, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. For now, I think it's enough to recognize that the genius wave, this whole brainwave entrainment thing, it's a super fascinating area. We're still learning so much about the human mind.
Totally agree. And for anyone listening who's intrigued, I say keep exploring. Do your own research, try different methods, see what works for you. There's a lot out there.
Absolutely. Sometimes just opening yourself up to new ideas, that's all it takes to shift your thinking, your whole approach to life.
Couldn't have said it better. All right, so as we wrap up our deep dive here, let's leave our listeners with one final thought. What if you could unlock that hidden well of creativity inside you, that deep intuition? What would you create? What problems would you solve? What kind of impact could you have?
Powerful questions. And even if the genius wave isn't the right fit for everyone, this whole conversation has shown us just how much potential we all have. Maybe it's not about finding one magic solution, but about being curious, exploring, pushing the boundaries of what we think is possible. That's the real key.
Well said. That spark of genius, it's in all of us, just waiting to be ignited.
And that's a wrap, folks. Another deep dive in the books. Hope you enjoyed exploring the genius wave and the fascinating world of brainwave entrainment with us. Keep those minds sharp, keep those questions coming, and until next time, happy diving.